Welcome back to Financial Therapy. It's not just about the money. I'm personal financial planner, columnist, and financial therapist Rick Kaler. Research tells us that 90% of all financial decisions are made emotionally, not logically. For nearly 4 decades, I've been helping people make better money decisions. So what makes my financial worldview different from most financial experts? I blend the nuts and bolts of financial advice with the emotions that drive making them. Good money decisions are not just about the money. So let's get started with today's episode. Welcome back to another edition. And we often talk on this particular show about the psychological work required to heal our relationship with money. But there's a neighboring discipline that I've referred to from time to time that really walks right up to that line, called life planning. So we're going to explore that today. And I'm joined by Lillian Turner. And Lillian's not only a seasoned financial planner, she's also a dedicated and educated life planner. She's also, are you the president or incoming president?
I am president. I'm chair of National FPA Next Gen this year.
Yes, of the Financial Planning Association Next Gen, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in so many ways, she represents the future of a profession that's really rapidly moving from a numbers first, a math first mentality to a human first mentality. So we're going to discuss the intersection of that, maybe where financial planning is going, and learn a little bit about Lillian. So thank you so much for making time to talk to us.
Of course. Thank you, Rick. Honored to be here. Big fan of the show.
Well, I think, when did we first meet? Was it at GGU or was it before that?
I believe it was before that. So I believe the first time, at least I encountered you, was the Nazarene gathering in Cannon Beach, which must have been 2021 or 2022. And that was before my time at Golden Gate. Maybe it was 2022.
I think it was 2022.
Yes,
Yep.
but I'd certainly heard of you and listened to you before, maybe read a book or two by you before, and then you were one of the big reasons I went to Golden Gate University because I loved that the teachers were actual professionals. They all, like you, Sandra Davis, Elizabeth Toton, all worked in the field. You weren't just academics. If there's anything wrong with just being an academic, but you were practitioners. That's the word. You were also practitioners. And that was really exciting to me to learn from that.
That's one of the strengths of that particular program,
Yes.
that you have the doers teaching it.
Mm.
And we can tend to not be as academic as the academics, and there's a
Right.
place for both.
There
But
is.
we can the academics, especially the researchers, trail along after
Mhm.
the practitioners
Yes.
to prove what they're doing is right, or to let them know that maybe that was a little bit of bias on your part.
Yeah, there's a difference for sure.
So you were in the GGU program, got your graduate certificate in financial life planning.
Yes.
What have you done since then?
Ooh, just a few things. I've
Yeah.
I've been a busy gal. So right after I finished the program at Golden Gate University, I started working at a firm that I actually got connected with by meeting a student at Golden Gate University. So it's been a huge stepping stone in my career. Just a little plug for GGU. But I started working at a firm that was doing the work of George Kinder and some of the 3 questions in discovery meetings. We weren't doing a ton of other life planning exercises, but even just being exposed to the 3 questions alone and being able to have a front row seat to the impact it was having on clients was game changing for me. And so about 6 months into that experience, I actually went for my RLP registered life planner certification. And it was, I believe, January of 2024 that I went to Maui to George Kinder's home for the Evoke training, which is a 5-day, incredibly experiential training where you're with a small group of other financial planners and you get life planned yourself as you're learning to life plan clients. And so from there, it's about a year-long process. I did the 2-day, 7 stages training. A few months later, then they have a 6-month mentorship. So went through that program. I'm also in the process of getting my CFT, my Certified Financial Therapist certification, Rick. I haven't told you that yet. So that's been a really
Oh,
cool journey. hmm And then right around the time that I went through the RLP process, one thing that came out of that was me wanting to launch my own financial coaching and life planning centered practice. So I've been a little bit busy doing that. And then, of course, you and I ran Nesrudin in 2024, the Nesrudin Gathering. And then, of course, my work with FBA has been a wonderful use of my time.
you have been busy. Well, I'm delighted that you're going to get the CFT Certified Financial Therapist designation. That's great.
Yeah,
And
it's been a long
so,
time coming.
yes, yeah, yeah. And you are a sponge for knowledge.
Yes.
And I love that. There might be somebody else on this call that's kind of like
Mm,
that.
maybe. We're both lifelong learners.
So tell me from your perspective, you know financial life planning,
Mhm.
you're getting the glimpse, you're learning about financial therapy.
Yeah.
Now, where's that dividing line between life planning and financial therapy? Because I think sometimes they're used interchangeably, sometimes
Yeah.
not. I
Mhm.
think there's a lot of projection on what life planning and what financial therapy is.
Yes, agreed, Rick. I think a lot of miseducation, which hopefully this is the direction the industry is heading. There will be a lot more awareness of the difference and correlation between the two. But my technical answer, as you know, is financial therapy is more focused on the past. Financial coaching, which is can be somewhat in between, is more focused on the present. And then life planning is generally focused on the future. The analogy that George Kinder uses, maybe you use this as well, Rick, but life planning is kind of like snorkeling. You're going a little bit below the surface with clients, whereas financial therapy is scuba diving. You're going really deep and you require, an oxygen tank or advanced certification. I would correlate that to be able to take a client scuba diving with you. There's a lot that goes into that. So I would say that I personally, though, am somewhere in the middle. In some ways, I think it's very individualized in how comfortable the practitioner is with guiding clients through things. And of course, we use the term like you never want to go further than you're comfortable being with a client. But I'm someone that will talk about anything with you: sex, death, money. You can tell me you murdered someone. Like you could tell me anything, and I will follow you there and facilitate conversation. So maybe I toe the line a little bit. But I do think there is a line, and there should be a line between the two.
So that I love your description of
Yeah.
therapy being scuba diving
Yeah.
and life planning being snorkeling.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a great one.
It's a good visual.
Yeah, absolutely. It really brings that to life. So tell me about when you're doing financial life planning with somebody. Tell me first a little bit of what can somebody expect from a financial life planner?
Ooh. Well, the first thing they can expect is really good listening and a lot of pauses. There's a lot of us pausing and giving the client space to think, to reflect, to dream. This obviously isn't a guarantee, but in my experience, a lot of my clients experience complete transformation, a total shift in the way they see the future or the way that they are using their money as a tool for living their most fulfilling life, which of course is my goal. But I do also tend to notice a little bit of a generational difference. And by that, I mean some of my younger clients who are, 25 to 30, they have a very long time horizon, hopefully, till, the end of their financial plan or the rest of their life. And it can be harder for them because they don't have as much life experience perhaps to think so far ahead. Whereas some of my clients who are nearing retirement or already in retirement tend to just have a clearer visual or in a way and on occasion get more out of the life planning process just because they have so much life that they've lived to reflect on and to think about, mistakes or regrets or things that they haven't done. And they're also a little bit closer to the end of their lives. And so maybe there's some more real sense of immortality. And it's a little bit of a different experience.
You make me think of. I think it might have been the time that Ted Klontz came up and went through one of my 2 day. I used to do the 2 day for George
Did
Kinder.
you? Okay. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, in fact, George and I got a gig in London to do the 2 day,
Okay.
and George and I did the 2 day in London. together
How fun. I wish I could have been in
a
that
long
room.
time ago. A
Yeah,
long time ago.
I'm sure it was
And
amazing.
I remember in this particular one, I had someone in there who they were clients, and I gave them the 3 questions.
Yeah.
And I won't give it all away. I probably most people listening to the podcast have done the 3 questions. But the second question was, if you have 5 years to live, what what would change? What would
Yeah.
you do? What would be your hopes? What would you do with that? And I had a client that was 80. And he's like, Rick, my answer to that question is no different than the first one. It reminded me that there may need to be some reframing to an older person because, to your
Yeah.
point, they don't have a lot of runway left. So
Yes.
that's the first time it occurred to me, like, oh, whoops.
Yeah.
So
What I also find though, Rick, too, we're on the topic of reframing, is sometimes the 3 questions hits different or feels different if you are someone who is already wildly financially independent, where you have massive amounts of wealth. And so in question number 1, where it's like you wake up, with massive abundance, what would you do? It's well, you're already in that scenario. And so how do we kind of reframe that to still make it really impactful? And so sometimes I'll reframe the question as to, like, imagine you had all the peace and the fulfillment in life, or all of the abundance, something like that, depending on kind of where they are. How would you spend your time versus so focused on, like, the dollar amount or the financial side of things? So there are times where the 3 questions requires a little bit of some improv, I'll say.
yeah, absolutely. And that remains one of the best exercises. I think that was George Kinder's gift to life planning. If I had to come down with one thing, was that was his. I don't know. Mine might be money scripts.
Yeah. You have a lot,
So,
Rick. You have a lot of gifts you've bestowed upon us.
oh, you're sweet. So I'm curious with you. You obviously love the relationship. You
Mhm.
love people. You love connecting,
Yeah.
and in that way, you're put together very differently than I, because I love the numbers and the data. And if an emotion would get out in the room, I try to squash it out and
Mhm.
let's look at that mutual fund chart.
Yeah.
So for me to learn that I have a right brain has been a very long and expensive trip. Where this is where you fall naturally. Would that be
Yeah.
true? I mean,
That would be.
obviously you were drawn to numbers or you wouldn't be in this field.
Yes and no. I do feel like going through, like, my finance programming in undergrad, I was very much the oddball out. I didn't love, like, the stock options class and the investment analysis and the international relations. I ended up doing a independent study my senior year of school, on behavioral finance, because I didn't have the terminology for financial therapy or life planning, and so that was the only word I could think of. But I will say I've had a really deep interest in the psychology of money for the longest time, and almost more like the concept of money fascinates me more than, like, the technical side of things, the dollar amounts or the stock market. Like, I couldn't care less what the S&P 500 is at today. It doesn't matter to me. I can't control it, so why am I gonna obsess over it?
So you're the perfect life planner.
Mhm.
And where do you see that division? I know we've
Yeah.
delineated life planning being snorkeling and financial therapy being scuba diving. Can you let listeners know what is that difference? How do you, as a life planner in the past, determine that there's financial therapy needed in this case?
Yeah, that's a great question, Rick. And I think it's a little bit of a work in progress. I'm very much an independent thinker and problem solver, and I want to be the one to help you. I don't like, delegating ever or outsourcing my problems. So I almost always attempt to fix the problem unless I can sense at the very beginning that there's something deeper going on, which is rare. But for example, we had a client a few years ago who it turned out he had a little bit of I wouldn't call it gambling, more like sports betting kind of addiction. And he would buy all of these sports cards on eBay, and then he would hide the transactions from his wife, and he ended up actually blocking his wife's emails from our team. So she was trying to email her financial planner, but we weren't getting it because her husband blocked it. And so we caught it, later on. It wasn't like from the beginning in an intro call, I could sense that this was an issue. It was very much deep rooted and underlying. And so at the time we brought in a financial therapist to kind of help our team develop the skills to help him. But I think in many cases, to the extent that you can tell if you're sensing any sorts of addiction, I often see clients who, are wild overspenders, but to me that's a cause for just a deeper look under the hood before diagnosing whether it's a behavior problem, a mental block, a mindset shift, or a money script that's coming into play, and how best to treat it. But for the most part, my point is, if I can sense initially that there is an underlying problem that I am not equipped to handle, I refer them immediately to a financial therapist. But I think it's hard to tell oftentimes what if they actually need a financial therapist, or if it's something that they just need to share with someone or talk about, or they just want some support or accountability, and that ends up solving the problem. So
Yeah.
it's hard.
And that makes a lot of sense to me that
Yeah.
there's a lot of gray.
There's a lot of
I
gray. Mhm.
remember once at an Asruden gathering, there was two people that were discussing when does therapy end? When does what you're going to say become therapeutic?
Yeah.
And where is that line that a planner needs to hand off a client? And there was one person who contended it's a very clear line. There was another one that contended it's really gray. I
Right.
know where the line is on the far left. I know where the line is on the far right, but there's a lot of gray in the middle. And I remember he
Mhm.
said, if a client tells you or asks you, how long is the suicide clause in my life insurance policy? How many years? The next statement you make may be therapeutic.
Hmm. Makes sense.
And I'll never forget that debate between the two. And I
Mm.
probably fall into the gray area.
Yeah.
Um, Somebody who's more clinical driven, psychologist who's more diagnostic may draw a line in the sand more than we do.
Right. Well, and we're not equipped as CFPs especially to detect these sort of issues. We're not taught any sort of marriage and family therapy counseling techniques or anything. It's very technical with the CFP curriculum. I think they did just add some sort of behavioral component or psychological component that wasn't even present when I did the CFP in 2020. But we're not equipped to diagnose or to tell as professionals. So how would we know? But I think also to your point, right, because it's very individual. For me, I go to the point where I'm uncomfortable, or it's very clear to me that there's a problem that I can't help a client work through. But I think for others who are very uncomfortable with emotions, they might see a client break out into tears and then think, "Oh my gosh, they need therapy," immediately refer out.
Yeah, and I think you nailed it, Lillian. You might have had a professor once that
Mm,
said, you've gone too far. You've
yeah.
already said this. You've gone too far when you feel uncomfortable.
Yes.
And back to my point with me, I felt
Mhm.
uncomfortable very quickly with
Yeah,
emotions, where you can really be in that space
I can.
with a
I love when
person.
clients cry. Bring it on.
And I would probably bring out that not necessarily all therapists have their continuum where they're comfortable
Uh,
with clients and where they're going. So it can be pretty fuzzy. I'm curious, you mentioned that we're not trained, we probably being life planners
mm,
or financial therapists that don't have formalized training or licenses.
yeah.
I'm wondering what your thoughts are if you have ever thought about getting training like an MFT
Every
or
day.
clinical. Huh? Every
Every
day?
day. They and they can make it really hard though, Rick, to do like a basic LMFT course or marriage and family therapy training. Like it's hard to find without being part of a huge program. Obviously, I don't want to go and get a master's in it. That feels counterintuitive. But I would love to take a single course. And so for me, it's a lot of self-study, reading books. Same with IFS. I just bought Dick Schwartz's book, You're the One You've Been Waiting For, to learn more that way because it's hard to find training in these different types of modalities if I'm not trying to become a full-on therapist. But absolutely, I think it needs to be, to some extent, part of the COP curriculum, or at least offered as like CE for financial planners to know a little bit more about what financial therapists actually do, get some good resources, figure out when to diagnose and refer out.
I've been on, in the same vein, I've been on a little bit of a kick in the last year of speaking to planners, suggesting that they get training in marriage counseling.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you were there and when
And
I spoke
FPA
to the
annual.
FPA. Yeah.
Yes, it was a great session.
That there's all sorts of training that's out there that could further equip financial planners, financial life planners, even financial therapists in what they're doing. Now, I'm fascinated that you kind of lifted the hood on IFS.
Well, you influenced me, but I keep hearing about it. And honestly, Rick, I use myself as my own like guinea pig sometimes. So I just got married in December and I dragged my fiance at the time to couples therapy for 6 to 8 months because I wanted the experience. And I would talk to my couples therapist about IFS and different modalities and say like, hey, can you guide me from this perspective or this side of the therapy? And so just so I can like learn while I'm doing it myself, which is call me crazy,
I
but
love
I,
it.
I got
No,
enough from it.
that's called a twofer, Lillian.
Yes. Is that a business write-off though? Can I like write that off on my taxes?
I I would seriously think that you potentially could, or at least a portion of it, because there's no better training than doing your own work.
Agreed. And we
I
can only
mean,
take our clients as far as we've gone ourselves. I heard that from a good
imagine
man once
that.
too. Hmm.
So I look at that as a necessary business expense in doing
Yes,
this work, doing your
agreed.
own counter transference work.
Oh, absolutely. My own countertransference. Yes. 100%.
So you've read the book. Was it No Bad Parts? Is that what you mentioned, or
No,
which
is it
book?
one after that, the You're the One You've Been Waiting For, which is about
Oh,
IFS
okay.
in a relationship model or relationship dynamic?
Excellent.
Yes.
And I think a lot of my listeners know that there was once upon a time you could be a practitioner like you and I, not be licensed therapists, and you could get the IFS training
Right.
and you
Back in the
could
day.
become certified as I did. And they cut
Mhm.
that off 2 years ago, 3 years ago. But there is a path open, and I probably mentioned this to you, called stepping stones.
Mm. Okay,
It's
remind me.
it's IFSCA.
Okay.
That's IFS Counseling Association. They're out of Canada.
Yes. Okay. I have looked at this before. Yeah.
And about my co-facilitator, I don't you were you in class with Stephanie Jenkin?
Yes. Yes, she was the TA.
Was she the TA?
I believe she was the TA. Yeah.
Okay. Was she's now my co-facilitator. And
Mm.
she just signed up for the Stepping Stones program.
Oh,
I've
cool.
kind of been nudging her. I
Yeah.
think this is okay to say on a podcast. Hope it is, Stephanie. And she was so excited. They had their initial meeting. They start in January and I think September of each year. And it's a
Okay.
16-week course.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen her more excited about something.
Mm.
So
Okay.
that is
So cool.
open. And
Yeah.
the instructors are amazing. And
Mm.
Robin Dixon, one of their lead trainers, is amazing. I
Okay.
was able to spend a week with her down in Costa Rica at one of Dick's retreat weeks.
Yeah.
And she's also plugged into money.
Okay.
Yes. So on your plate, put
Yes.
that on your plate as a way to get
I
the
will.
IFS competencies.
Yes. I love that idea. Something about IFS definitely calls to me, and I need to dig deeper into that.
And along the same line, you can get your own IFS therapist
I can.
and start experiencing it.
Yes.
And
I've
I
tried them
will tell,
all at this point, so it's IFS is the last modality I feel like I have
Is
experience as a
the
client.
last one. And
Yeah.
I use what I have learned in my own IFS work. 50% of what I will do in a client session comes from doing my own work, my
Wow.
own weekly IFS therapy.
Mm,
So
it's
I
fascinating.
love your excitement and enthusiasm and how you
Mhm.
just want to learn it all.
Thank you. I'm blessed that it is a passion of mine. I genuinely enjoy it, but I also do strongly believe it is where the industry is going towards more of this behavioral focused, human centered financial planning. I mean, you know firsthand, Chad, AI can do a lot of the technical stuff for us. Obviously, not everything, and there's still value in having a full financial planner. But I think the real value for us as CFPs is going to be in a little bit more of the life planning side of things and a little bit of the financial therapy and just listening and being human.
Totally. Lillian,
Yeah.
where can people find you
Ooh.
on the internet?
Yes. If you wanna check out my financial coaching and life planning practice, the website is daringgreatlywealth.com. I'm also on LinkedIn under Lillian Turner, and I have a decent following on Instagram. My handle is at Miss Lillian Hope. So you can find me there.
Miss Lillian Hope.
Miss Lillian Hope.
Well, thank you so much for taking time. I know you've got to jump to another meeting right after this.
I do,
And I
yeah.
just really appreciate your enthusiasm. You're one of the new pioneers in whatever's coming down the pike. And just enjoyed you as a student, enjoy you as a colleague, and
Mhm.
really appreciate everything you're bringing to the profession.
Thank you, Rick. I learned from the best. Wouldn't be here without you and many of the other greats. So thank you.
Thank you, Lillian.
Mhm.
Take
Of
care.
course.
Thanks for joining me, Rick Kaler, for another episode of Financial Therapy. It's not just about the money. This is where I combine the nuts and bolts of financial advice with the emotions that drive making them. Remember, every financial behavior, whether it appears illogical to you or others, makes perfect sense when we understand the underlying beliefs, feelings, and thoughts. Sign up for my weekly blog at financialawakenings.com. I hope you'll join me again for our next episode.